So, you've just gotten your new XH2 or XH2s camera. Now what? Hi everyone and welcome to Pal the Tech. Today we're talking about what happens when you first turn on your Fujifilm XH2 or XH2s camera. And by the way, a very special thank you to Fujifilm North America for sending over this test unit to me for a few weeks to be able to test it out. Now the idea behind today's video is that these are the settings to just get you started, and also to make sure that your XH2 is set up to deliver the best possible chance for success in your initial period of getting familiar with it. So the very first thing you need to do is put a battery in it. Luckily, this camera uses the same batteries as an X-T4, so if you have one of those, pop it in there now. And of course, you will need to put either an SD card or a CF Express card in the slot. We're going to put both of them in for today's video. Now, there's a shortcut button combination you can use to format your SD cards. It involves holding down the delete button, you see that right there, and pressing and holding down the down D-pad button. See? Just like that. Now, this can trip up XT camera users because you need to actually hold down that down D-pad button for a second or two. You can't just press it, right? So you press, hold in the trash can button, and then you press and hold in the down D-pad button. Once you do that, you can go ahead and format the cards in the camera. By the way, for this first round of settings that we're going to be making to the camera that don't really involve video, go ahead and put your PASM dial on, say, M for manual. Okay, so first and foremost, we want to be sure that this camera is giving us our money's worth and that it's operating and displaying at the highest quality. So head over to the power management section of your menu. That's in the little wrench, right over where it says power management. Go ahead and change performance mode to boost. Now, while this will slightly drain your battery faster, you will be getting better autofocus with the camera and better viewfinder display performance. I also recommend setting the EVF LCD boost setting to EVF frame rate priority 120p as a good starting point. Next, go into auto power off temperature, and I recommend setting this to high. You'll get this little warning message. Go ahead and say, okay. This is particularly important when you're shooting video. And what you're telling the camera basically is, yeah, I know that if I'm shooting at 4K, 60 frames per second, the video is gonna get you all hot and bothered and you're gonna heat up. Deal with it and don't automatically shut off while I'm in the middle of shooting. You can deal with that extra heat to make sure that I'm getting my footage. Thank you very much. In other words, it sets the threshold for the camera to auto shut off regarding the heat a little bit higher. Keep in mind though that with this setting enabled, if the camera does not get hot enough, it will shut itself off no matter what. It does know ultimately who's the boss. For auto power off, go ahead and set this to whatever works for you. For myself, since I shoot video and I use HDMI a lot, I don't want to have to worry about record time limits. So I always put this into off. I just don't like the idea of the camera shutting itself off for any reason without me doing it. Next, we want to set up the viewfinder, right, to better suit your eye. The first thing you need to do is to make sure that the diopter adjustment control is set properly so that everything is nice and crystal sharp, right, as you're looking through it. You need to adjust this to your eyes if you require correction, like I do. The next thing you want to do is to go into the screen setup menu and adjust the brightness of the EVF. Go to the little wrench area into screen setup and you see where it says EVF brightness. Now you can set it to either automatic or manual. I prefer to actually set it to manual, then go into the screen setup menu and adjust the brightness of the EVF to whatever you're most comfortable with. And you basically use the D-pad controls while you're looking through it to make the setting adjustment. Remember though, it's the viewfinder, not the back LCD screen, so you need to be looking through it while you're making the adjustments. And while you are in screen settings, I recommend going down and making sure that preview exposure white balance in manual mode is set to preview exposure white balance. This way you're going to get a really good idea of what you're shooting with regard to film simulations and exposure. Next, while you're in screen setting, I strongly recommend you scroll down to DISP custom setting. You see that right there? Go in here and make sure your histogram is turned on so that you can see it. You are using your histogram, are you not? And see, there it is right there. Next, it's a good idea to tell the camera the correct time zone and time. Go into user setting, area setting, And right now it has me in Los Angeles. I'm not in that time zone. Let's fix this. Simply use the left and right D-pad controls to shuttle back and forth between the various time zones. I'm gonna go ahead and jump to East Coast time. Boom, boom, boom. Once you've done that, go down to date time and set the date and time. Now, while you're in user setting, if you go down to where it says sensor cleaning, okay? The sensor cleaning operation can obviously be helpful in making sure that your sensor keeps somewhat clean. However, what I don't like is for it to run when I turn the camera on. When I turn this camera on, I don't want 1 millisecond of delay before I can take a picture. Therefore, I have it set so when I have when switched on, I have it set to off, and when switched off, I have it set to turn on the sensor cleaning. Now, in terms of image quality settings, there are a few that you might want to make when you first start using your XH2. Go up to the IQ section of the menu to find them. The very first thing I would do is set image quality. Instead of just JPEG only, set it to JPEG and RAW. You see where it says Fine RAW right there? As I have said many times before, if you are not currently using RAW files, one day you may be, and you will be so glad that you have your old ones that you can go back and tweak and adjust and get some incredible images from. So shoot in both. However, if you are 100% certain you're not going to be shooting RAW and it's JPEG only all the way, then make sure at the very least for your JPEG, you always select Fine. This will give you the highest possible resolution and image quality for your JPEG images. Now for RAW recording, I always set this to uncompressed. And this is only because if I set it to lossless compressed, when I'm browsing my photos on a Mac, like in the Mac Finder, I cannot see thumbnail images. It won't work if you have it set to lossless compressed. So I set it to uncompressed. I would rather use up more disk space than have that hassle. However, lossless compressed can certainly save you file size, and there's no reason not to use it regarding image quality. Next, for JPEG HEIF, you see that right there? I would strongly recommend setting this to JPEG. I made a whole video on the problems with HEIF format, so I'm not going to get into that here. Now, while you do get some file size savings if you set it to HEIF, JPEG is so universally adopted everywhere that I always keep mine in JPEG. Life is too short to deal with an image file that won't open in a program, app, or display on a website. Just saying. One of the biggest differences between the XH2 and, say, the XT4 is that on the XH2, you now have a button right here that allows you to switch and tell the camera what focus mode you want to use. As you know, on the other XT series of cameras, you have the little switch, but now it is a button. And when you press the button in, boom, you immediately get your choice of single, continuous, or manual focus. And you use the D-pad buttons to cycle between them. Now, there is another change that was made on the XH2 that can trip you up, especially if you're coming from an XT camera, okay? And that has to do with the focus stick. On the XH2, if you press in on the focus stick, you don't change your focus point. Instead, you just zoom in, using focus check. Watch this. I'll go ahead and press in the focus stick right now. It zooms in. And the reason that Fujifilm probably did this was because they removed the ability to press in on the rear command dial. You can no longer do that on the XH2. You can only rotate it. So on the XH2, to get to the area where you want to move around and adjust your focus point, you simply move the stick either up, down, left, or right. And as soon as you do it initially, you'll see your focus points, and now you can make your adjustments. You'll know that you can make your adjustments when you see it turn green. And simply use the rear command dial to make the setting changes where you go from single point to zone to wide. And when you're done, you could either press menu OK or press the joystick. Now, if you absolutely hate this and you do not want to have it where you have to move the joystick left, right, up, or down to get into that edit setting, then you could put it back to how the XT cameras work. Here's how to do that. Go into your menu, into the wrench, button dial setting, focus lever setting. You see that? And right now, it's set under push to zoom. Change push to edit focus area. There you go, just like that. Now, when you go to press it in, just like on, say, the XT4, it will allow you to start editing your focus point area. See that? And I actually prefer doing it that way. And if you set it up this way, you could then assign a different button to do the focus zoom check, right? And I would choose perhaps this button right here, or you could do this button right here. And you can set up all of your custom buttons very easily by going and pressing down DISP back for a few seconds until you get this edit screen, and go ahead and customize them from there. Another focus setting that I change when I'm setting up my XH2 is to go into AF/MF and then look for AF plus MF. You see that? Go ahead and turn that on. This will allow you to fine-tune your autofocus manually. So for example, if you half press down the shutter button and the camera focuses like it does right now, then I can rotate the focus ring and make adjustments to my focus as well. It's a great setting to have. There's no harm in turning it on, so I turn it on. Now for manual focus assist, when I am using all manual focus, I usually turn this on and I use focus peak highlight red high. That way when I'm focusing manually, I get all the help I can get. You see the little red right there? Pink! That's in focus. That's not in focus. That's not really in focus. That's in focus, see? My recommendation for the touchscreen setting may surprise some of you, but I recommend it for new users of any Fuji camera with a touchscreen. Turn it off. It's easy to accidentally trip one of the touchscreen settings, such as movie silent mode, and then what that does is it'll disable certain other functions on the camera. You don't realize it happened, you don't know what's happening, and it can be very frustrating if you're not used to the camera yet. And once you're fully familiar with the camera and how the whole thing works and the operation of it and all that, then you can go ahead, try it out, turn it on, and see if it's for you. As an FYI, I never use a touchscreen for anything on the camera. Go into AF/MF, touchscreen mode, and turn it off. I also go into button dial setting in the wrench, touchscreen setting, and I turn it off. I also get a little bit more room on the viewfinder, which I like as well. I do that every time I'm using a new Fujifilm camera. Now for the exposure meter, we want to go into the little camera icon, into Photometry right here, and instead of multi, I recommend changing it to center weighted. That'll give you a little bit more control in those first few weeks of using the camera of your exposure meter area and how it affects your shots. I would put it in center. Now let's talk about video settings. Go into movie mode and set it for 4K 16:9 at 24 frames per second. I would not yet be choosing and shooting at 6.2K if you're just starting out, particularly if you do not know or aren't sure how powerful your computer is and how it's going to be able to handle the camera's footage. 4K at 16:9 at 24 frames a second should be a good starting point for you to give you really good quality, but not these incredibly massive file sizes. Now, in the movie section of the menu, you'll notice that there's not many options. Where did they go? Well, to see the other movie options, you need to be sure that your PASM dial is set to the little movie camera icon. You see that right there? Once you do that and you go back into your menu, all of the menu choices now are geared only toward video shooting. There are a lot of advanced settings here, probably enough for me to make 5 or 10 more videos on just this. We can't do it today, but what I am going to tell you is how to set it up so that you can just quickly get started and get out there shooting right away. So first off, go to the little movie camera right here, go to movie setting list, and make sure that you see 4K 16:9 at 24 frames per second right there. If it doesn't say that, go ahead and click on it and change it so that it does. Next, use the down keypad button, this button right here, to jump down to the next option. Once you have it highlighted in white, press the menu OK center button right here. Boom. I would strongly recommend changing this away from ProRes 422 unless you know what you're doing with that. ProRes is going to give you a video file that is going to be huge from a file size standpoint, and you may not need it for the type of editing or the type of output you plan on using for your video. If you aren't sure what to put here, and this is your first time really digging into and using the XH2 camera, I would start by choosing H.264 long GOP 420 MOV and set the bit rate to 360 megabits per second. That's going to give you really good quality video at a low file size compared to what you would get with some of these other codecs on the camera. Now, if you're a Windows user, particularly older Windows machines, then you may want to set this to H.264 long GOP 420 MP4 instead. You can try keeping the same bit rate of 360. Either one of these right out of the gate should be good enough when you're first starting to use your camera. Now, you would think the next choice is where you set your film film simulation. It's not. It's where you set your output either to the SD card or HDMI. For now, go ahead and choose the top choice. We'll get to film sim in just a sec. Next, I would go into Photometry and I would set it to center weighted. I would make sure that my image stabilization mode is definitely turned to IBIS OIS, but I would keep IS mode boost to off. Now, if I go over to IQ section under film simulation, I would change this to either Pro Via standard or Pro negative standard if you're just starting out. But feel free to choose whatever you want to fit your creative needs. For your white balance, I would go ahead and set it to auto for now. You shouldn't be shooting with white balance in auto mode once you really get a handle on the camera. But right now, Fujifilm's auto white balance is pretty good, particularly if you're shooting outside, and it's better to have that than to have it set to something you don't understand yet and you don't want to have to worry about it right now while you're learning the camera. Set it to auto. Now going down to AF/MF, under focus mode, unless you are planning on focusing everything manually, which a lot of people do when they're shooting video, I do recommend, if you're just starting out, that you set this to continuous autofocus. Then set your autofocus mode to area. And your AFC custom setting, this is probably one of the more important settings with regard to autofocus performance and can affect a lot of things. And I have whole videos on this. Right now, just learning the camera, I would take my autofocus speed and I would make it a bit faster, maybe 3. I would keep my tracking sensitivity to 2 as a starting point. Remember, it's all about compromise. This is a starting point. Try this out and adjust as necessary. And I have other videos on specifically how AFC mode works. I'll leave links to those down below. Just like I mentioned a few minutes ago when we were talking about setting up stills with video, go ahead and set AF/MF to on. For your audio settings, okay, in the little microphone icon right there, I would turn both internal and external mics to auto. This way you're not having to constantly be adjusting and worrying about clipping your audio when you're first starting out. However, if you set them to auto, make sure that you also go down and set mic level limiter to on. Make sure that's set to on if you have these other two set to auto, which I recommend setting them this way when you're starting out. And I would make sure that wind filter is turned off. Not the best setting in the world on the camera. You can do much better in post-production. Leave it off for now. Okay, so these are some of the basic settings I recommend when you first get and turn on your XH2 and start using it. There is so much that I have not covered, and I'll try to get these videos done as quickly as I can before I've got to return this unit back to Fujifilm. I do plan for my next video on the XH2 going specifically into best practices for using the PASM dial. I have some helpful tips that I think can really benefit your shooting, especially if you're coming to the XH2 from, say, an X-T4. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you found the video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. I'm going to be signing off now, but have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in a new video next week. Take care.